I think all the rules that I had set for myself is what I let go of. And I just had to say, how am I going to get through this? How am I going to help my family get through this? And that was the moment. And that was where I rebuilt my belief of like asking for help. I found it important to be able to define what I needed, making it very clear so that people could help you, because most people don't know what to do.
Welcome, everybody, to the Finding Good podcast. My name is Brian Fretwell, and this is a podcast about how we use community to do hard things. Because doing hard things together is actually how hard things get done. My background is in consulting and speaking, specifically in culture and teams and connection and trust. And what we understand in all of that is that it's with community that we get hard things done. And I wanted a podcast that helps us focus not just on what individuals do. There's a lot out there about how we use grit, how we face burnout alone. But what the research shows us is that most often we overcome those things together. So this is a podcast about that. And today on the podcast, I'm really excited and honored to have a really good friend, Heather Mahnkin, who is a mother of three, a loving wife, a dedicated occupational therapist, former rugby player, which is where I know her from. She's here to share a deeply personal and powerful story about building connection and community during one of life's most unimaginable challenges. When her youngest son was diagnosed with terminal brain cancer just before his second birthday, Heather and her family were told there were no treatment options. Instead of giving up in despair, however, she made the courageous decision to focus on living the best life possible with her family, navigating the heartbreaking journey of childhood cancer with grace, love, and purpose. Throughout this journey, Heather found ways to engage and uplift her community, even in the isolation of a global pandemic. She supported her healthcare team through rising burnout and continuously found ways to meet both her own and her healthcare team's need for connection and support. This is a conversation about resilience, intentional living, the power of human connection in the face of overwhelming adversity. And I couldn't be more humbled and honored that Heather would raise her hand to have this conversation. So I'm going to go ahead and bring Heather on. Welcome, Heather. Good to see you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. And we were just talking kind of off there. Like it's been, a year or two since you were here in Boise? We got to see each other in person.
Yeah, I think it was a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And time just goes by. I think it was like yesterday. So.
Yeah. What do they say? The days get longer, the years get shorter, right?
Yeah.
So definitely feeling that. Well, thank you for jumping on board today, and with the context of these conversations, to be able to come and share and talk about one of the hardest things people can go through. I think like I couldn't, wrapping my head around that, but also in focusing on how we engage our community through that, because I think that for so many people, we're kind of conditioned to believe we face these things alone. And I think there are some things that we ultimately do alone, but how we bring connection and community around it. And your story specifically, because I got to kind of be part of it indirectly, it's just always been one that really stands out to me. And so hopefully today, just having a conversation, taking us in there, walking us through, and then what are the things that you did to build community, but also to maybe even create boundaries in your community, right? To be able to go through these things. So I kind of have an outline here, but I feel like you're a better guide on where to start kind of understanding the story of the journey that you went through, but that arguably you're still on, right?
Yes, a different capacity, but yes, it is. It is very different. But back in 2017, there was nothing. We were the average family raising our small children and trying to figure out life. And I noticed I'm a pediatric occupational therapist, and I help children who have challenges where there's weaknesses on one side of their body. The medical term is hemiplegia. And but really, my son stopped using one arm. And I was like, oh my gosh, what does this mean? And we went through the journey of getting it diagnosed. Ultimately, it was found that the cause why he was having such a hard time moving his arm and then moving his neck was because he had a brain tumor that spanned from his midbrain all the way down
Hmm.
his neck and his
Mm.
cervical spine. And it's devastating. It's heartbreaking. As a parent, you feel hopeless. And what do you do in that moment? And right there, I found out the power of the village, of the people around, creating that community, because you can't move forward by yourself. You can't do it all.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
the next step was that Eli had an 11-hour brain surgery to get it removed. And, it required my husband and I to be there at the hospital. He was in the
Hmm.
ICU and then went to the main floor and he couldn't do anything. So he
Mm.
was, an active little boy to being, like, I called him a big sack of potatoes because he didn't move anything and he was in such pain and discomfort. How do you move forward? And you move forward
Mm.
by asking for help.
Yeah. How, so that process from like, I can't move my arm to where you just were, what was the timeline on that?
It was about a month.
Oh, wow. And I'm curious because I didn't know before like that. What was the H word?
He was 22 months.
Oh no, the H word you use that like I can't use a part of my body. It was
Oh,
the
hemiplegia.
hemiplegia. It was interesting that like you treat that and then your son had this. So is this something you had dealt with like somebody else's kids before, or how did that change, if at all, the way you responded to it, but also your ability to maybe even reach out to the people you work with in that, like how did yeah.
It had a huge impact. I think it has totally changed the trajectory of like how I am as a therapist. Because my son actually ultimately went through a lot of the treatment programs that I helped kind of cultivate within our organization. But not only was I the therapist on the side, I was also the parent. So,
Mm,
being able to come and sit with someone where they're like, oh my gosh, how am I going to do this? Um,
mhm,
I could join them. I know what that's like.
mm,
I know what it's
yeah,
like to um, say, my kid can't move his arm. What am I going to do? This is a bimanual. This is you use two hands through this world. If you think of
mhm.
like opening up a jar or putting butter on some bread is always using two hands. And when that is not an option for your child, it becomes very hard. And
So that is you. So what I'm hearing and seeing is like you were in the position of helping others through this. How then were you able, like, how hard was it then to turn and sort of ask for help from others? And who were the people that you sort of initially asked for help from?
so I think there's so much pride I had as an individual that I didn't want to ask
Hmm.
for help.
Mm,
And I think when you get kicked so hard in the gut that you have no
hmm.
choice, that is what I had to do. I don't think
Mm.
I had any other options because um, I had to ask other people to come in and make things possible.
What do you think it was, that thing that made it so hard to ask for help? What did it represent, do you think?
Failure, shame.
Mm. As like in if can you like like in what context, like do is it yeah, what is the I'm failing as a parent, a mother, as a professional, or like all of it?
All the above.
And and then the shame is just like internalizing that, is that
Yeah. That there is a within myself, I had my own
mm-hmm,
dialogue saying that I should be a sufficient independent woman that could do it. I could do it all.
mm,
I could be the parent, be the mother, be the professional. and I could make it all happen. And
Yeah.
um, when, the pressures get so hard and high, and you realize you can't, and then you start
Mm.
seeing things fall apart, and that feels um, it feels like you have failed the world, you failed yourself, you failed all those expectations. And I had to let go of that. And I had to say goodbye to those expectations that I put around myself to make moving forward possible.
And can you remember, is there like a moment that that shifted? Can you think of like the moment where you shifted that, or at least like yeah, what was the moment that you moved out of that?
So Eli had that's my youngest son who was diagnosed with cancer. He had a surgery in April. We were doing all the different things. I felt like I had put it all together. I had it back in control. And
Hmm.
in June of 2017, he had his routine follow-up MRI, and they found out that what they first predicted was not what my son had. He ended up having a very aggressive high-grade glioma. Um, and from when the surgery happened, where they took out like 97% of the tumor, um, to 8 weeks later, the tumor had pretty much grown back completely.
Oh wow. Yeah.
Um, and I won't forget the doctor coming in or well, actually, he took us to a room, and he told us in the most layman's terms that our situation was grave and that we didn't have options, and that he was going to take this to the experts of the country and to give us what we could do. And I walked out of that room, and I went to the chapel at the hospital, and I hit the floor, and I screamed out. And that was my low.
Mm.
And that was when I had to let go. And I did.
Mm. What were you letting go?
I think all the rules that I had set for myself is what I let go of. And I just had to say, how am I going to get through this? How am I going to help my family get through this?
Mm.
Um, and that was the moment. And that was where I rebuilt my belief of like asking for help.
Hmm.
I found it important to be able to define what I needed,
Mm.
making it very clear so that people could help you. Um, because most people don't know what to do. You have to
Yeah.
give people like set guidelines. People were showing up, people were sending texts, but they were like, I want to
Uh,
help you. I just don't know how.
uh,
And you have to say, this is important to me. This is what
mm.
is important to me.
Yeah. It
And
feels like they
so,
bring food. Did they bring food?
oh my gosh, we had years of people bringing food. Like we have been fed for like the masses have fed us for years. So we're very fortunate because this was a really low point.
Hmm.
And then in this story, the medical team came together and they created a miracle for us.
Mm.
They threw a dart at a problem and they said, I don't even know if this is going to work, but we're going to try it. Um, he wasn't like it wasn't at a drug trial. It was literally they took a drug that was on the market and they used it on him.
Mm.
And they said, this may work. And in our situation, it did. And so Eli
Mm.
lived for 5.5 more years after this
Mm.
very intense emotional moment. But I think that is where I started to learn. Like told the doctors, or my husband and I told the doctors, like, the most important thing for us is giving our son the best quality of life. We don't want him to
Mm.
be, um, we want to give time, but we don't want him to be really, really sick. What can we
Yeah.
do?
In that moment of like letting go, and it sounds like letting go of the control, letting go of those old stories. Once as you let that go, what began to take its place? Like what did that open you up to more of?
Joy.
Mm. Yeah, tell me about that. Like how does joy and like asking for help and involving your community, like how are those related?
Well, I think the best example I can give in this whole thing was, so my husband and I sat down and we started creating what we called like the bucket list. Well, the old
Hmm.
movie bucket list, but we did it. We're like, what do we think would be great memories for our kids and our family?
Mm.
And we had to like make it in a very short period of time. We lived in 3-month segments of like when he scans. That's all we were let our minds get to. And I said, I want Eli to go crabbing. He's a 2-year-old. But I was like, the moment of getting out on the water and putting the pots down and then coming and pulling them back up and like seeing that opportunity. And I was like, well, I think he needs that. That is like a must.
Yeah.
And so we called a friend that we knew that was in their community, and we said, "Hey, we would want to take Eli and our family crabbing. Can
Yeah.
we make it happen? And can we make it happen on this weekend?"
Yeah.
and they just said, and they dropped everything, and we dropped everything, and we made it happen.
And so that interaction with your family was different than prior to that moment of letting go. How were you interacting before? Because this sounds like a different energy for sure.
Well, life is all planned out. Like you'd say,
Hmm.
"Oh, I really want to do that. Let's do it in 7 months and we'll put it on this day." And then you call your
Mm,
friend and they're like, "Oh, we have that going on. Oh, we'll push it off another like 3 more months." And so then all of a sudden it becomes in another year or another 2 years. Like
mm,
from that moment right there, we literally started living for the moment. We're like,
mm,
we're going to do this. Well, let's do it now.
mm.
And
Yeah.
you there's like you just don't I didn't live like that prior to it.
Yeah. And it sounds like moving from like controlling, like here's what we're gonna do, and here's where it fits, and here's where it doesn't, to like I almost want to say it almost feels like responding, like it's like adapting to what is. Is that?
I like that. I don't know if I would have ever thought my life was but that would be a good reflection of what I'm talking about. Yes, I we
Hmm.
just adapted. We just said, um, you know, what is it like to live in the present moment? I think it's very hard it was very hard for me. I don't know if it's
Yeah.
hard for all people, but it was hard for me to be able to be ever present of like what right now feels like.
And it's that was that difficulty kind of like indirectly what almost like enabled and even maybe forced you to involve other people more? Like in this case, the family and how we plan, and then the friends and how we plan. Like was that? Do you think those were like related?
Yes,
Mm,
because when you control everything, you think that you can keep it in your hands.
mm,
And then when you
yeah,
don't, you do need people to help you because like I don't know, nor did I have the bandwidth to be able to plan out some of the opportunities that we did because I knew nothing about crabbing. I don't even
right,
know how that even came into my head, but I
right,
thought that was an experience that was a must have, and we
yeah.
made it happen.
So it sounds like before that would have been, we're going to go crabbing. I'm going to research crabbing. I'm going to set the agenda for crabbing. I'm going to walk everybody through crabbing. And now it was like, okay, crabbing. And here is my like, ceiling on crabbing. And after this ceiling, here's where where
Mhm,
I actually need everybody else to put this together.
mhm.
What does that What does that give you more of when you're able to do that? To actually like like to a consciously or unconsciously say I can't handle it all, and then b allow other people to handle the rest.
It gives you freedom.
Mm,
Like
that.
I think of where, and I love how you were like recapping that, because all I can think of is like all the different things that I like um feel like I'm just walking out on ledges at times, and
Hmm.
I know it's all going to work out. I don't
Mm,
worry about all the things to make it perfect or make sure that everything is covered. I know it will be covered,
hmm.
not
Mm.
because I'm doing it,
Because
because
right.
everybody, like if you get a collective together of lots of different people and each does like 5%, it just gives you so much affordance of being able to do so much more.
Mm. And tell me how, because you went from that moment and then you started doing this, but it sounds like this process of sort of building faith and trust in other people. From like, tell me what are the like from the planning thing, like because we now have like 3 or 4, 5 years. How did you start engaging your community different?
um I guess my question is back on you. Like, how did you from that story come out with faith and trust?
Yeah. So, well, A, I could be wrong, right? But
No, you're
what I
right, but
heard,
I want to know
yeah,
why
yeah.
you went there.
So, yeah, the picture you just painted about, I'm walking into the unknown. I'm walking out on the plank, right? But it's gonna be okay. And
Mhm.
so for me, it just plugged in the word of like, how do you know it's gonna be okay? Well, that has to be faith or trust. But those are my words. Like, so if I but that freedom sounded like there was a component of like I'm like, and it almost feels like that moment of letting go was like a surrender that then allows you to not have to like put the onus on, like I can put this on other people and not put this on, I can invite other people to take a part of this and not lose myself.
I love how you just unfolded that because um, surrender is actually my word for the week that I
Mm,
have been uh, spending time like talking about like how I've come to that place. So
yeah.
um, I didn't realize it was a bit of work in progress over the last 5 years, but thank you for bringing that forward. It has.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, no, I do think, going back to your original question, like I don't know if I trusted other people beforehand
Mm, yeah, yeah.
because, I was at, and I think it was visiting, you could unpack it many different ways, but it's this
Hmm.
belief that I had the grit and ability to do it on my own. Um,
Yeah.
and I strongly believe that beforehand.
Mm. And it's interesting that like this strength, the grit and knowing you, like absolutely, like I think of Heather, I think of grit, I think of resilience, those sorts of things. Even back when we knew each other playing rugby, right? That was sort of like you kind of have to have that to play rugby in the first place. But it strikes me that the idea of these inner strengths that we can build, grit, resilience, right? Faith, trust in ourselves, whichever the case, can then can almost become crutches, right? Like if I identify with it so much, if I don't do, you know what I mean? Like if I don't let the grit lead this and I don't lead it by myself, something's wrong with me, as opposed to like, I can have this and I don't have to make things harder with this, right? And I just think about that for myself of like when I get into that, I'm going to finish it on my own. I can get through hard things on my own. Well, why does that need to make it harder? You know what I mean? Intentionally, not intentionally, but where there is opportunity for help or support, I don't seek it, therefore making it harder because I'm just trying to prove this piece in me. And I don't know if but that's how like I hear it. Yeah.
Well, and I think that you can add to like what the next step of this, even as I was letting go, I felt like I was so isolated and so alone.
Mm, mm,
And um and I felt like I was chasing things that I would never achieve. Um which is very hard. And what was I chasing? I was chasing peace. I was chasing um, being comforted in this really hard period of time. And
mm-hmm.
even as I was unwinding and starting to do these things, it was probably like, you're your onion and you're taking the layers
Hmm.
off and you do it.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like I fully jumped in 2 feet and said, yes, this is this new life I'm
Yeah.
going to live. Uh,
Yeah. No, I love that picture. Like there is this moment of change, but that's the beginning of change, right? Like I didn't like, oh, everything's good now. Yeah. Like and I think as you described it, like it started in the family, right? And then so tell me how it started to bleed into community and then work, because there was the piece, where you from my from where I stand, what I see is like this move, you move from asking for help, then ultimately over the course of time into like helping other people ask for help as well, right? So like tell me about some of the practices that emerged, as you went down that road. Yeah.
well, I think the next step of how this kind of how it impacted from my work family is
Hmm.
again, I was in the most amazing work family to help support like my coworkers bent over backwards um,
Mm,
to help um, our family. And we were all like, we're therapists, my kids being treated within that community.
hmm.
Um, the doctors that I work with are within that community. Like everybody,
Mm,
um, they wanted a story for Eli as much as I
mm,
did. Um, but I was lonely and I was trying to be Susie's sunshine and tell everybody that everything was okay when I knew it wasn't. Um,
mm,
I had learned how to spin a message. I appreciated the doctors being very honest with us, and they
hmm.
were optimistic all in the same moments
Yeah.
with us. And again, we articulated what our goal was. They got on the page with us and made sure that
Hmm.
happened, and that was lovely. But I was like, I need something. Like I'm falling apart here.
Mm,
And so, I haven't been taking care of myself. I haven't been working out. So how
right.
did I handle that? I was like, I'm gonna go run a marathon. And so then I
Right.
signed up for the marathon. And then I was like, well, I better start running now because I just signed up.
Right.
Better work at this. And I was talking about this with at work. And one of my coworkers, a couple of my coworkers said, we'll go run the marathon with you.
Mm.
And so,
Do you think unconsciously you were hoping that to happen?
oh, probably. Yes, 100%. 100%.
Mm. What
I wouldn't,
why do you say 100%? Yeah.
because I wouldn't have gone to work and shared it and told everyone who wants to join me. Like
Yeah.
at there, I had the invitation. Now I was doing it in a joking
Yeah.
manner because I didn't actually think people would sign up. But
And was that maybe a bit of like, "Hey, can you do this with me because I don't know how to ask you to do this really scary thing with me?"
or maybe I didn't even know how to define what that really
Mm.
scary thing is. Like I don't think, and we're gonna get into this more, but I I have self-reflection, a better self-reflection now because I was given the tools. At the time, I
Mm.
had no idea. I didn't know how to do that. And like as we're having this conversation and as you're reflecting on the things that I'm saying, it now makes sense. but in the
Mm.
moment, I didn't know.
Right. Yeah, yeah. And I think that's just like we tend to, as I look at that, and as we've seen kind of like in the, is like we're sort of naturally just designed to seek community, to seek, our pack, right? And so,
Mhm.
like we'll do this in very interesting ways like this, right? Yeah. So yeah. So back into like asking everybody to, or asking, having others start to be involved in the run. Go ahead.
Yeah. And so from there, so two people from my work said, yes, I'll do this marathon. We did the St. Jude's marathon in Memphis. So I'm in Colorado. So we're already talking about traveling. We're like, oh, we need, and from other people hearing the story, more runners signed up. So we ended up having a
Mm,
house full of runners. Um, and it was all interconnected, like people knew people, but it's not like people I knew. And that's how I started realizing the power of story. Like people heard my
mm,
story and said, I want to, this is really hard.
mhm,
So I'm going to go run a marathon with her, and we're all going to come together and for support, because that's a space. Most of the people who said that yes they want to, that they would come, were runners. Like I'm not.
mhm.
I was like the back of the pack, they were the front of the
Right.
pack.
Yeah.
But they were like, yeah, we'll come and do this with you, you won't be alone.
Mm. And what did it feel like, and what did it mean to have them in the house like that?
um that's a really good question. I think it felt less scary to live life, and felt less scary to go run a marathon that I had no idea if I could do.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
I think that it does. It takes away it makes it easier to walk out on the ledge,
Mm,
because you have these people that are just like interconnected, and they're like, oh yes, you can do this. Oh yes, you can be a mom in this hard situation, and we're going to celebrate it all together.
yeah. And it sounds like just in, the frequency of that, and having those, like, you might mess around and believe them, right?
I think that, one of the things that I achieved in running, like I'm a very visual picture person, like that helps
Mhm.
me with processing really hard things. Like I learned from that experience what peace really is. And like I feel I had peace wrong, like the definition of what peace is. And peace, I you know, as for you, because you're a runner, when you do long
Mhm.
distance, you wake up at like 4 in the morning to get your long runs
Right.
in. And I remember I was on a long run, and the sun was like, I ran in darkness for, I think, probably maybe 7 or 8 miles. And I had like 7 or 8 more to go as the sun was coming up. I remember what it was like to look out on the sky and just seeing the different colors, and you saw the darkness, and the hues of purple. And then as um at the top, and as you started going down more to the horizon, you started seeing the oranges and the reds, and then that bright yellow.
Mm,
And I was like, what a peaceful moment. This is peace.
mm,
And peace is the combination of all the things that you have in life that may be dark and hard, bright and beautiful, and they all can
mm,
share space at the exact same time, and just make this picture that you're able to live and breathe.
mm.
And that was
And
where I was able to move forward.
And with that, we're going to take a pause on this conversation with Heather and end the first half of this Doing Hard Things Together discussion. I hope this first part of the conversation has been as powerful for you as it was for me. I hope it helped you find and reflect on the strength that we find in asking for help and the transformative power of letting go. I want to take this time to remind you that the purpose of this podcast is to help us reflect on the importance of community and the importance of connection in helping us get through the hard things together. And in doing so, perhaps we can start to battle this idea that we need to do things alone that helps to make us feel alone and makes those hard things a little bit harder. My name is Brian Fretwell, and this is Finding Good Podcast. If you enjoy these conversations, if you're finding value in these conversations, I encourage you to subscribe, to follow us, or even check us out at findinggood.com. We'll continue with the second half of this conversation with Heather Mahnkin that is both powerful, inspiring, and a little bit heartbreaking. And we hope in the conversation you're able to see community and connection a little differently.